Hi, my name is Sophia Miller, and this is Exploring the Generational Thoughts. What is the biggest issue facing Gen Z today? This is my fifth and final episode for my final project. Let me say it again. I'm a senior and I attend Dos Pas High School and dual enrolled at Merced College. I have interviewed several different people to get their opinions. I interviewed 3 people from 3 different generations, including my own generation, and I also made a video, my first episode, explaining my own thoughts on the matter. Let's get into my opinion first, the first episode I made. My first initial thought on this question that I proposed was that social media and the internet is a big issue. I believe that social media has such a hold on how we think about ourselves, how we treat ourselves, how others could think about us, and how we think about others. For the second episode, I interviewed someone from the boomer generation, Scott Miller. Scott Miller stated that he believed that understanding of government was a big issue. For his generation talked about government a lot. At the dinner table with family, around friends, it was a very intricate issue to talk about. It was normalized. My generation, it's a taboo. We understand that talking about government can be direct into how we think about others, which, in my opinion, shouldn't be a direction of how we think about others based on their political beliefs. In the third episode, I interviewed someone from the millennial perspective, Marla Samsung. She is my principal at the high school, and she stated that she believes social media and phones are a big issue because being an educator, she sees how it can direct someone's relationship with a friend or a relationship and how posting on social media can alter someone's school life. For my fourth episode, I talked to someone from the Gen Z generation, my own, Noah Campos. Noah stated that he believed social media again was a big issue and that phones were a huge issue as well. He believed this because he thinks that it has such a hold on us because a lot of my generation can't go a single day without it unless they're doing something interactive throughout the day, which I think is a big issue. So at the very end, I think that my viewpoint has kind of altered a little bit because I've heard so many different perspectives on this. I had also made a Google form that was sent out to my entire school and someone in the community, and I got quite a few responses on it that I read over very carefully. I think that this questionnaire that I proposed and that I sent out was a very good way to kind of see more than what I was just interviewing. I couldn't interview everyone at the school. I couldn't interview everyone from every generation. But I chose 3 people from 3 different generations to interview so I can get some different perspective. And I thought that's not enough. I need multiple different people included in this. So I made the Google form. I got quite a few responses, and a lot of them were anonymous. They didn't want their name attached to it, which I respect. I gave that option. And a big majority of the people that answered my questionnaire were 9th graders. I have it pulled up right here. Were 9th graders, staff at my school, the public, and also 12th graders that are in my grade. A big majority was Gen Z. 80% of the responses that I got were all Gen Z, which is interesting to see because so many of them had so many different views on it, especially because it was talking about their own generation. So I think it made them think a little bit. And I did have some people that answered my questionnaire come up to me or that saw it and didn't answer it and just ask, why are you asking these questions? Like, what is your point on it? And I had a good conversation with them that was not recorded, that I just discussed with them what I think and what I've interviewed other people saying. And I think that it made people actually think about what's going on around us and realize that it's a big issue. I've even had people after they've asked me these questions come up to me and say, I really did think about this and I think my phone is a big issue. And some of them even, I know one of my friends deleted social media because she thought that it was such a huge issue and she just needed to get away from it, which I think it's very brave of her to do that because social media has such a big grasp. I just got a job, and the only way I got it was through social media. I found the account of the business owner, and I applied to the job through her link on her account on Instagram. If I didn't have Instagram, I would never been able to get that job. So I think it is a big issue. But with the boomer perspective, I never even thought about how government could be a huge issue as well. I was in, I misspoke. I participated in a mock government during the summer where I went and I dormed in the SAC dorms. It was called Girl State. I dormed in the SAC dorms. I met so many different people from so many different perspectives. And honestly, I think that it was such a good experience because all the stuff that I did there, I never even knew were a part of government. I myself was a part of a city called Fultz, named after a woman named Fultz. That was her last name. And she was the first lawyer in the East Coast, I believe, the first female lawyer. And in that city, I met so many different people. I myself was the city clerk of that city, and one of the people in that city became the governor of Girl State, which is a good experience to see how the election all got handled, because being the city clerk, I handled the election, and I was the one that was figuring out if they were disqualified or if they were accepted with their application to be in the running. So I think that being a part of that experience, I have a bit more information about what the government is now, especially going in not knowing anything. Because frankly, I knew nothing. I didn't know what exactly the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, what either side was fighting for. I just knew their names. I didn't know what they fight for. I just knew they were against each other. So being a part of that, I was a Republican at Girl State. I think that I got a really good view sight of what that was about, and I very much recommend my whole generation researching what the government is happening around us, like what is going on, because frankly we don't know, because we don't talk about it. It's a taboo topic because we think if we talk about it, that ruins relationships. And a lot of people in my generation think that if someone does not agree with them on their political beliefs, they cannot be associated with them, because how can they associate with someone that votes for someone that they don't agree with? And I find that very liberal to say. Now, going into this form, I think that the responses I got were not what I was expecting. I was expecting Gen Z to kind of make a mockery of it, because so many people at my school do that. You ask them a certain question and they just make it a joke. They don't take it seriously. So I was expecting a lot of bogus answers, but reading through these, I realized these are very intellectual answers. So it must have actually made people think what's going on around them, made them actually consider what's happening. So knowing this, I think that my viewpoint had changed, especially because the government was a big issue that I didn't think about. In the internet expanding out of social media, I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking about social media specifically involving the internet. But there's so many other things that are on the internet that isn't social media that control us so much, like games on phones. Noah Campos, who I interviewed for the Gen Z perspective, he talked about how some games on his phone he just is so addicted to, he has to play it every single day without fail, or else he feels unaccomplished with his day. And I can understand that kind of perspective, especially because I have a certain game on my phone that I play daily. And it's just something to relax me and to get me ready for the day, but it also takes up so much time out of my day to where I feel like the whole day's gone by and I've done nothing. So I do think that that's a big issue that did change my perspective, but I really enjoyed interviewing these people and getting the different perspectives, especially because seeing how each of them reacted to the questions I was asking. I didn't go in with a list of questions, you gotta answer these, you gotta answer these. I went in with my one question: what is the biggest issue facing Gen Z today in your opinion? And I got so many different responses. I came up with questions on the spot based on their answers. I didn't want it to be scripted. I didn't want it to seem fake. I wanted it to be real and raw. All I told the people I were interviewing was I need an interview for my college class on a question that I propose. They agreed. I went in. I said, okay. I started recording. This is the question. What is your response? And honestly, I think that they were all very shocked by my question because they had no idea what I was going in with. After I was done recording with my grandfather, who is the boomer I interviewed, he said that he thought my question was going to be something about like the different generation coming up, Gen Alpha. My little cousin's in Gen Alpha, so he thought it was going to be something about how people are bringing them up, something like that. The millennial I asked after I was done recording, what did you think my question was going to be? She said that she thought my question was going to be about school life. And then my friend Noah Campos, who I interviewed, he said that he thought my question was going to be about food and pricing and cost of things around us. He had no idea it was going to be about our own generation. So all those different views makes me think about how they all thought I was going in with so many different questions, but I all sent them the same thing. They thought I was going to ask them about things that were relevant to their lives. Because my grandfather and my grandmother take care of my little cousin most of the time, they thought it was going to be about my little cousin. Because my school principal thought I was interviewing her, she thought I was going to interview her about school life because she's an administrator. My friend thought I was going to interview him because he talks about money and needing money so much. So all those different views kind of shows how self-conscious someone can be because they were thinking about that constantly up and coming to that interview. They were telling me, each of them told me basically the same thing, that they were expecting this, and this because I chose to interview them. I chose them for a reason because my question related to them. Which I think is very interesting, especially because what I asked had nothing to do with them in general. It was a generalized question. What do you think is the biggest issue? I wanted people to think. I wanted people to consider. I wanted people to really grasp the idea of what's going on around them. Because frankly, my generation is the generation that will be running this world one day. So seeing that, how do they think will be the biggest issue? I had also theorized asking, what do you think the biggest issue will be when Gen Z is adults? Which I thought would be an interesting question, especially because some of Gen Z already are adults, but none of us are running yet. None of us are going for these big positions that will be running the world one day like everyone else is doing. None of us are owning big billionaire companies. You know, that's all millennial and mainly boomers are doing that. My generation hasn't even grasped that yet, hasn't even touched the surface, most of my generation. I won't speak for everyone, but I'm speaking for a small majority that I know. And I think that that is very interesting to think about. I didn't ask that question because I wanted it to be a in present question, something that was happening right now in time that we are living in. And I think my question was a good way to break the ice on certain topics. Since I asked my grandfather the question, he has been more open with me about politics. I've been asking him different questions. I've just been wondering. He's willing to answer, and he doesn't criticize me for not believing what he believes. For the millennial, my principal is now very friendly with me and saying like, hey, what they think about the interview. I would love to talk to you again about this. I have so many other things I forgot to add that I just want to discuss with you. And my friend Noah, he's now very open with me about discussing certain things about himself and what he's realized since I've asked that question. I think it was a good way to break the ice and open the pathway of conversation because so many of these topics that I discussed with these individuals are so controversial for my generation. This is the conclusion of exploring the generational thoughts. What is the biggest issue facing Gen Z today? Again, I'm Sophia Miller, and I loved making this project. I hope I can do something like this again. Thank you for listening.